Hello and welcome to Nikon Sessions. In this episode we're going to be talking about portrait photography, but not just the people behind the camera, also the people in front of the camera and what it means to be a portrait photographer and dealing with people. I'm joined by Carolyn and Chera. I think a really good place to start is just an introduction of yourselves and give the people at home a bit of an idea about what you do. So Carolyn, we'll start with you.
So I'm a portrait photographer. I do commercial commissions, I do personal work, I do some documentary work as well.
I'm Chera. I started off in the wedding world as a wedding photographer, and now I'm working in the fashion and portrait industry, and I also host international workshops, which are my Odyssey series.
Cool. Well, thank you so much. So I suppose one of the key things I really want to start on when it comes to portrait photography is you are a person. The person that's then in front of the camera is a person as well. What does it mean to be dealing with people, and how do you find that it works best for you when you approach a portrait situation?
The people are at the centre of the story, so I'm really interested to find out more about them before I even pick my camera up. I want to hear them talk and I want to engage them in conversation. Sometimes I will plan a shoot. If it's a commission shoot, I will have ideas, but I often really want to go with what's going on with them, and that in a lot of ways is kind of taking time to find out who they are. I'm not the important person, they are.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think it's so important to create a good bond with the subject. And really what you want to do is evoke some emotion. And for me, that comes with wordplay and trying to figure out a little bit about them. And the more effort and energy you put into that at the beginning, the more you can reach back in the end.
It's just about, those people being heard and feeling important and feeling good, actually, feeling good in that moment. So yeah, I think the whole point of taking a really powerful, compelling portrait, whatever age group it is for those people to feel listened to feel heard, to feel part of the story.
Do you think that, because you mentioned earlier about how you like to tell a story with a single frame, do you think that that's something you'll always aim for, or if there are situations where you like the idea of multiple frames that link together?
Yeah, I think it's a mixture really. Obviously you have your hero shots or you have your one powerful portrait, but I think often a commission can be a story. It might be an editorial commission, and therefore it's a very different approach. In an editorial commission you want to tell that story and you want to, there's a journey from the beginning to the end, but that's quite a really interesting and fun thing to do.
Yeah, I mean, it's sometimes nice even to pull in some almost behind the scenes pictures, so they're not officially behind the scenes, but people can see, a little bit of a sneak peek into what was going on.
Yeah.
So I think with that in mind, one of the things that I'd really like to know is, do you prefer natural light or controlled light? So LEDs or speed lights or studio lights? Which way would you want to go? I'll ask you first, Carolyn.
There is nothing better than a great natural light.
Yeah.
I'm always trying to get a natural feel to them. I don't want them to look too overlit. But I absolutely love being on location, outside, when there's absolutely beautiful, beautiful light. So it's a real mixture for me, or indoors. I'm always looking, if I'm doing an environmental shoot, indoors in somebody's home, then I'm trying to find that amazing artistic light, I guess.
I was always team natural light, and to be honest I went through a phase when I was very scared of anything else, but being studio based now it's almost impossible just to rely on the natural light. I'm lucky I've got floor to ceiling windows with a blackout option in my studio, but I'd still always prefer to go on location with beautiful natural soft glowing golden hour light. That would be my ideal.
So what I think we will do is, if we start talking about some individual images, I'd love to know more about your thought process and composition and how you get from kind of that initial idea to then that final shot. Let's talk about this shot first, Chera, because I know there's a pretty good story about this one.
Oh, there is a good story. So this is Dylan Hartley. He was the England rugby captain. He was the Saints captain for a long, long time. And he had his autobiography coming out with Penguin, so it was quite a big deal, and he'd had his cover shoot with a big sports photographer. I'd already shot his wedding, so his wedding went into Hello magazine, so we had a connection already. And I got a phone call this cold January morning saying, Dylan's book's coming out, and he just said, I'm not using any of those pictures. I've got a photographer. I'm going to get her to take them. Not the option. He said, she's going to do them for me. So he came down, and I was a little bit, wary. I had an art director from the publishers on the phone to me telling me what a big deal this was, and we nailed it down to the last 10. And I said to him, are you sure if I send these over to the publishers that you're happy for any of them to be on the cover? And there was one of the 10 we were umming and ahhing over. And I said, if you put it in and you're not sure, they will pick it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he said, just leave it in. And I wasn't sure, and it was a grey backdrop. Anyway, they picked that one. And it wasn't this one. This wasn't the cover in the end, but it's my favourite of the 10.
Yes. And is that the type of thing that still gives you quite a good confidence boost at the end of the day, that, they came to you because they know that you can get the images that they like, right?
Yeah, exactly. He had complete confidence in me, and it might not have been something I'd have put myself forward for, but when someone comes to you, then, you just got to go for it.
And it's a really just simple, pure portrait.
Yeah, still with
honest.
the steely eyes, but it has a softness around it as well. There's still a little bit of vulnerability there.
Carolyn, do you want to talk to me about Pogba?
This was a recent commission with Bloomberg News, and I was sent up to take Paul Pogba's portrait. And let me just be very honest and say I almost turned it down. And all my friends, photographer friends, were going, you cannot turn this down. But I was not allowed to do certain things. I was not allowed to show the location he was in. So it was worked to my advantage. I found ivy and wildness, and I thought, well, that really suits my kind of style. He was really chilled, and so for me it was about creating a variety of portraits of him, which were not like the typical footballer portraits, but just caught a completely different side to him.
So I mean, this is something that you've both done. You've both shot sports people, celebrities, and do you think that dealing with a celebrity kind of personality is different to dealing with a normal person, or is it?
I mean, they have the confidence already.
Yeah.
They've been shot 1,000 times, so it's easier to work with them from that aspect because they know what they're doing. They're a bit more professional in that way, but usually the time is limited. That's the issue,
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I don't know. I said earlier that I treat people the same.
Yeah.
I do, but I'm always respectful of that person, whether they're a celebrity or not. I think the problem often is sometimes it's time limited. Sometimes you can't prepare. You can't do recce's. You have to go and just do it. So he was amazing, and he's very photogenic. So that's half the job done, isn't it? Really?
Yeah, that's so true.
Yeah.
That's so true.
So if you can talk to me about the inspiration you get from the photographer and the shots that we have here.
So I've got two portraits here by a photographer called August Sander. He did a project called People of the 20th Century. So he did a project that wasn't over 7 years, wasn't over 1 year, it was his entire life. And he lived in Germany, and he basically took portraits of all different kinds of people. And he categorized them, so there might be boxers, or there might be farmers, or there might be children. And it was almost like an ethnographic study. But I just love the portraits. I just find them really exceptional and humorous. And, he would have used like a large format camera or glass plates, so they would have had to stay still. But I love the composition, I love the depth of field, and I love that moment. So when I'm taking portraits of young people, sometimes I'm looking for those moments. So I find him complete inspiration. I would love to be like an August Sander, but I don't know, actually I don't think I could do it all my life. But that's what I love about them.
So if you could talk to me about your inspiration from this shot.
Yeah, sure. So this is Vivienne Westwood by Tim Walker. And I just love Tim's work, that he's almost, the eccentricity of it, the use of colour, just so wacky. And it's just perfect for her personality. It's just the perfect combination of the two. And, Vivienne Westwood's all about colour. That iconic orange of her hair with the flowers is perfect. And, yeah, I love anything with flowers. I just throw a peony into any portrait if I could, just to soften it up, so yeah.
And this one, I think we all know who this is by.
Yeah, so this is by Curry.
Yep.
And shot on a Nikon FM2. And yeah, it's just such an iconic image. I think everyone in the world must have seen this at some point, right? But the intenseness of her green eyes with the perfection of the background that matches, you know, it's just yeah, it must be in the top 5 portraits of all time probably. And it's a Nikon.
Yeah. Carolyn, this one.
I was commissioned to do some work with adults living with dementia in a care home. So initially I was asked to document workshops that are being run, and then they said to me, oh, you're a portrait photographer. And I went, yeah. And they said, well, can you take some portraits? So I was sent to a room which was beige walls, huge amount of light, and I thought I really want to create something which gives people dignity and gives people space and time to be who they are. So, you know, a dark background, the light was super bright. So I closed these blinds till they were that wide, and I put a little diffuser behind it, and I had like 10-15 minutes, and it was the person and their partner, because often people living with dementia do not have pictures of themselves and their families. So it was like amazing experience for me, because I found that the nature of having your picture taken is almost something we are all really familiar with. So for those people I took portraits of, they were really relaxed, and it was a moment of dignity, and it was a moment of enabling them to be who they were in quite a powerful way.
And Tara, if you could talk to us about this shot.
Okay, so the model's a girl called Maisie, and I shot her for a hair shoot. It was a corporate shoot in London a few months before. And what she's really renowned for is this amazing mop of red hair she has underneath. But when I worked with her, what really drew me to her were these intense, almost amber-coloured eyes she has. And so, you know, we got on well, kept in touch, and she's only based in Milton Keynes. She came into the studio one day. But I had a vision in my head of her with this green balaclava on, just a few, you know, tousled hair and really strong eyes. And so it's almost like the focus is on her beautiful face for once, rather than the mane of hair. Yeah. And she's just such a great girl. And this was one of the first shots we took, actually, because I knew what I wanted, and we got it almost immediately.
Wow.
Yeah, and because we already knew each other, so she was relaxed, and the makeup artist was amazing. So, yeah, it's nice when you visualize something and then it comes to fruition. I think that's one of the most rewarding feelings.
Okay, so I think one of the things that's also worth talking about, especially from a portrait photography point of view, I don't necessarily think that the camera body makes a massive difference, but I do know that lenses can make a massive difference, and you mentioned about 85s and 105s and all that type of stuff. So I suppose the question I'd want to ask you is there a focal length that you really enjoy using when it comes to portraiture, and if so, you know, what is that?
I've always loved 85 1.4, but I have to say I'm really in love with the 50 1.2.
Yeah.
So I do love prime lenses for portraits. I think lenses have changed a lot, because I will use like 24 to 70 and that 2.8, and I find that really good now, whereas I wouldn't have used it a couple of years ago. I would have just been primes.
Yeah.
I love the fact with primes you are more active, you move to get your picture. And I think that the kind of glass is usually good quality as well, and that makes a massive impact on the picture in terms of the depth of field, what your decision is, whether it's going to be wide depth of field or narrow depth of field.
I was always team 50 for a long time, and that was my comfort zone. And I know that that's going to cover me for all aspects, you know. But I tried the 105 macro, the 2.8, and that's just been on then ever since I've got it now. It's outside my comfort zone, but the results are just insane with it. So I don't think I'm going to be taking it off, to be honest. Especially for portraiture, it's just perfect.
Is it that you think do you prefer the longer focal length? Is that the the compression and the...
Yeah, the compression, and it's just, I don't know, I think it's because who was it that said, if your photos aren't good enough, it's because you're not close enough.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm delving into now, getting in there and getting like gritty with it.
Do you think that from a portrait point of view, obviously a zoom is more convenient, do you think it still gives you that complete portrait shot? Do you think it still looks the same as a prime lens, or do you think that that's changed to what it used to be? Because there are lots of portrait photographers that I speak to and they're like, oh, I only shoot primes, but there are more and more people that be like, yeah, you know what, I could start to use zooms, and they're a little bit more flexible, and I think that is starting to change now.
I think the Z24-70 changed my views to 2.8. I took it on portrait shoots and I found that it had glass was great, that obviously I could, it was really flexible. I could decide where I wanted it to be. So I use both now, whereas before I was one of those portrait primes.
Yeah.
Boring portrait
That's still
primes,
me.
But yeah.
Boring portrait primes. But I've always been that way. Well, I mean, that's not necessarily true. When I first started, I had a D3100.
Yeah.
And I had the choice between the 24-70 and the 85. I think it was a 1.2 or 1.4.
1.4.
1.4.
Yeah.
And I stupidly went with the zoom and regretted it so much for so many years. And I actually got a 51.2, you know, the manual focus.
Yeah.
And just fell in love with that. It was dirt cheap, and I got the best portraits of my life in that. And then I've never turned back from primes after trying that one.
And it's so magical, isn't it? It's like when you first start taking portraits and you discover primes. I know it's kind of different now, but just to get that huge, powerful, impactful image that you can get with a prime.
The sharpness. And if I ever meet anybody that's starting out and they've got a kit lens or they've got a zoom on, I'll say, get a 51.2.
Yeah.
Trust me on this one.
Yeah. I've just noticed something about our prints. All our subjects are looking at us.
Yeah,
I'm just looking at
I'm terrible for that. I love, but I want the connection in the eyes, and it might not be, you know, in vogue. So many, you know, editorial photos are looking away, but I want to have that connection with the subject through the lens.
Because they're not only looking at you as the photographer, they're also then looking at the viewer of the image as well, which can make a huge difference, like you say, to that connection and the story behind as well. So I think one of the things that I'd really like to end on is that clearly photography and portrait photography is one of the easiest types of photography to get into because there's people all around you, but I also appreciate that it's probably one of the most difficult types of photography to get into if you struggle with that, getting that connection to that person. So what would be the one or couple of pieces of advice that you would give to somebody that really wants to get into portraits but they're currently just struggling to kind of figure out who they should shoot, how they should go about it?
So when I first started, I had kids, small kids. Oh, there's Poppy. She's 16 now. So I documented my family to the point that my husband encouraged my daughter to put her hand up and say, stop, no publicity. But I would always say to people, use people you know. Take pictures of your family. Document your life, their life. That's Oscar. He's grown up now. So tell the story of your family, of individuals in your life. It could be your friends, and really practice with your different lenses, with different ways of telling that story. But there are people around you. You can, I think, utilize friends, utilize family, practice.
Yeah, I mean, I completely agree, Carolyn. I think if I was to sum it up, I would say practice, get a 51.2 and take as many people out as you can in golden hour.
Yeah.
And 6 months' time, you'll have a portfolio. Chef's kiss.
Well, thank you both so much. I think we've talked about some really interesting subjects there and hopefully given some advice to some of the people watching from home. Thank you so much for joining us, and thank you for watching this episode of Nikon Sessions, and hopefully I'll see you at the next one. Thank you, goodbye.